Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's web seminar on the 2019-20 Burton Book Fund. This is information for colleges, bookstores, and students, and we're very grateful you're all on today's web seminar. Hard to believe we're talking about the 2019-20 academic year already. Feels like the last one just wrapped up. So thanks again for being here. We're looking forward to sharing this information, answering your questions, and having another great year of the Burton Book Fund. So let's look at what we're going to cover today. Talk just a little bit about what is the Burton Book Fund. Many of you have participated for many years, but we're always trying to expand access to it, reach out to schools who may not know about it. So some of you on today's web seminar, it may be a first time. We will go over eligibility. We'll talk about the Burton Book Fund process in terms of who, what, when, where, why, so that we have, a nice, transparent understanding on the parts of everyone about what we do to get all of these books out into the hands of young people who need them. And then just raise a few important things to keep in mind, and we'll wrap up with question and answer. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, my name is Amy Lemley. I'm the Executive Director of John Burton Advocates for Youth. We're very happy to have with us Xavier Mountain. Xavier is a former foster youth. He's also a youth advocate here at John Burton Advocates for Youth. And perhaps most impressively, he is the recent recipient of a master's degree in social work from the University of Southern California. He's an exceptional young man who is going to kind of share his point of view on higher education for former foster youth and kind of the importance of accessing the book fund and the role that it can play in supporting foster youth in higher education. And then the bulk of our presentation will be by my colleague, Senior Project Associate Carolyn Ho. She's leads the Burton Book Fund. Many of you get emails from her, reminders from her, and so she's really going to walk through the nuts and bolts of the Burton Book Fund. She's the main point of contact that all of you should have in your working for the John Burton Book Fund. Okay, so just to review, we want to make sure everyone has all the information they need to participate. We did not upload the handout, unfortunately, but we are going to make sure to get that to you as soon as possible. It has all of the available information. There's also a great web page on the John Burton Advocates for Youth webpage with all of this information. And then the most important part is that we answer all of your questions on the web seminar. So please no question's a bad question. If you have it, I'm sure many others do as well. So as you get them, please submit them. Carolyn and I are monitoring those, and we're going to cull through as many as possible. If they're very, very specific, we'll probably just respond to you specifically, but most likely we'll hold them to Q&A, and then we'll go through as many as possible. And then all these materials and the audio, everything is going to be posted on our website. All right, so what is the Burton Book Fund? So this is much of what we do at John Burton Advocates for Youth. The bulk of what we do, as you can see from this slide right here, is not direct services to young people. Starting with that upper left-hand kind of portion of the pie, we do a lot of advocacy, so advocating for the adoption of new state laws and regulations and local ordinances and policies. And so trying to kind of change the rules for children and youth in foster care, homeless youth, and young people involved in the juvenile probation system. We also provide technical assistance and training, often related to the policies that we've advocated on behalf of. So, for example, we are very involved in the passage of legislation to create publicly funded campus support programs, and we've really enjoyed having a lot of time with the campuses who are implementing that program. So convening them, training them, doing web seminars, issuing publications. That's an example of how our policy advocacy work relates to our technical assistance and training. The direct services portion is the Burton Book Fund. We know that it takes a long time to pass a law, and it takes a long time for it to be implemented. And we know young people, they need help today. So the Burton Book Fund is really the thing that we do that is an effort to say, you know, while we're hopefully changing things at the state level, while it's being implemented across California, let's help young people. And so that is our kind of singular direct service program that we operate. And what is it? So it's a program that offers current and former foster youth financial support to offset high costs of their course materials. And we really encourage contact with the support professionals on campus. And it really supplements the work. We hope and we endeavor to supplement the work that's happening on campuses. We know that a program to help support the cost of books needs to be part of a larger complement of services that young people access in order for it to be truly impactful. And so we're trying to achieve a few different things. First, we're trying to increase contact with the campus support professional. Those of you who are on the campuses, you know the young people the best. You are experts in higher education. You know how to navigate financial aid. And kind of the more access and contact they have with you, we believe the better. And so the Burton Book Fund tries to promote that contact through the initial application and through the mid-year reallocation. And so sometimes we get questions about, well, do we need to be involved in those? And so it's very much an intentional process. By having that contact, you're getting a little more exposure, they're getting more exposure to you and all of the wonderful assistance that you provide. Secondly, we're really trying to maximize receipt of financial aid. And so we were part of the study that was issued at this point a couple of years ago that looked at increase in, or that looked at financial aid receipt among foster youth. Only half were receiving the Pell and only 13% were receiving the Cal Grant. Now, for a lot of good reasons and not so good reasons. And we've worked with many of you to change those policies to improve access to those forms of financial aid along with the Chafee Education Training Voucher. But no matter what, no young person can get any of those forms of financial aid without completing the FAFSA. So that really is the second thing we're trying to achieve is full receipt of financial aid, and that does require the FAFSA. And so together, you know, it takes a lot, but we believe those are two important ingredients to ensure young people have the opportunity to enroll, to be retained, and ultimately to complete their college degree. And so in terms of what we're trying to achieve for systems change, again, increasing contact between the child welfare system and campuses, and engaging students and campuses to advocate to improve policies. We can't say enough about the role that the students and the campuses play in our success in advocating for policies at the state level. Either today or tomorrow, in a very short period of time, it may be, if he hasn't even already, the governor will sign the state budget, which includes a historic $19 million investment in homelessness among college students, which we know foster youth are more than twice as likely to experience homelessness while in college than the general student population. So that's just one example of a policy change that was only possible because of the effort that your campuses and many other campuses put forth. So we are providing the books, but we're also trying to make a connection with you and invite you into that policymaking process and that advocacy process to the extent that you have the time to, and to the extent that your students are interested in that. They're very powerful, and you are very powerful messengers to help us make the case about the need for more resources on campuses. And so we very intentionally remember that and reach out to you in the course of doing that policy advocacy. So with that, I want to kind of turn to Xavier. So Xavier is on the line. He's formerly in foster care, and as I stated earlier, most recently a master's degree in social work from University of Southern California. And Xavier has been very active in advocating for our education policy proposals, including the expansion of the Cal Grant from 4 years to 8 years of full-time enrollment, which is in effect, and most recently increasing access to the Chafee Education and Training Voucher, which now has had 2 budget augmentations as well as an expansion of the upper age limit. And so thank you very much, Xavier, for making time. I know it's a busy time of year, graduation, getting out into the job market, and really, really appreciate your time today. So I was going to pose a few questions for you, and how does that sound?
Sounds great to me.
Great. So maybe first, let's just talk about the Burton Book Fund. You were a college student. You've been a college student. Now you're a master's degree student who has completed. How did you hear about it, and how did you get connected to it?
Well, I'm being in a foster care system since the age of 2, being adopted and my adoption papers being avoided, and then getting to a point in my life that was hard to transition. Going to college was not the easiest transition, especially when I had to deal with life as well as stability as mentally. And so there was a rough patch in my first year, a few years, and I lost my financial aid. But thank you to ILP, Independent Living Program, they referred me to funding that they had, which was the John Burton Book Fund, and I was able to afford my books. And
that's great.
That's how I heard about it.
And it also just highlights the importance of the network of providers. I mean, ILP is such an important connection for young people moving into higher education. Now, so it sounds like you lost your financial aid your first year. Did you regain it, and how did getting financial aid kind of put you back on track? I mean, or were you not able to get it restored?
I did regain it, but it did take a path to get that back. But in order to do that, I had to get my GPA up. And in order to get my GPA up, I had to meet the academic requirements. But in order to meet those academic requirements, I needed to have the correct books so I can get good grades. So it's kind of one of those situations, like they want you to have great grades so you can get your financial aid back, but you don't have the money to afford that. So then you have to work to afford those books. And so when John Burton came into the picture, I was able to afford the books. I was able to get my grades back on track, and then I was able to get my financial aid back.
Well, I'm really glad you point that out, Xavier, because this issue of satisfactory academic progress is something we're paying more and more attention to. And when a young person's not meeting SAP and they lose that financial aid, it is this real catch-22. And so we recognize that this is not a huge financial resource, but it is something that for young people who are losing their financial aid due to failure to meet SAP can be a small and hopefully helpful resource for them, because that is a tough position. You lose everything, so you have to work, and it makes it hard to stay enrolled full time, certainly, if not enrolled at all. So Xavier, a lot of folks on today's web seminar are either campus representatives, like professionals who work on campus, or they are bookstore contacts. And so I'm wondering, what advice you would give them about how to do outreach to students. How do they, because really the eligibility criteria, I don't want to say are narrow, but sometimes we hear from campuses that they want kind of tools or tips or any guidance on how do we identify these young people, and how do we engage them and bring them into this conversation so that we can support them in this way?
Well, just like how I was able to get in contact with the book fund, on most campuses have programs that are very, they're geared to foster youth. And surprisingly, even though sometimes we're on campus most of the time, we don't even realize what kind of programs we have. So even looking into the school and asking them, is there any foster youth programs that we have currently that we can actually work with so we can provide book funding is a great way to connect with foster youth. And even when it comes to connecting with them on social media or any other platform, I'm blasting out letters of notice to all the students, because sometimes foster youth don't publicly state their foster youth, especially on their application. So sending out letters, there's this funding for foster youth who want opportunities, please contact us. It's always great, because I will tell you that all it takes is that one letter or that one recommendation or that one connection with the John Burton Book Fund that can ultimately change a foster youth life, because I can say that it changed mine.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I mean, I think you're offering up some really good pieces of advice. Young people may not want to identify as a foster youth in their application. Maybe broader, use of social media and the networking. We see that a lot too, where a former foster youth learns about a campus support program. They tell other young people. I mean, that kind of just informal networking. Young people know young people. And so thank you very much for sharing that, and congratulations on getting your master's degree. Now, what are you looking for a job currently, or what's going on for you right now this summer, now that you just wrapped things up?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely looking for opportunities to be able to do some bigger policy advocacy work, which obviously I'm doing with you. But to even better expand, to make a difference, and to make a dent in history that can affect foster youth for the future. Because I strongly believe in that we should not dictate who's worthy, and we should present the opportunities for them to dictate that for themselves. So I
I
look forward
agree
to
wholeheartedly.
yeah.
And we have 96 people who are on our web seminar right now, and I can testify for those of you who are in any position to hire a very talented, hardworking, and committed individual who has a master's degree in social work. I hope you'll think about Xavier. Maybe if it's all right with you, Xavier, maybe even send out your resume to the group, because this is a really excellent group of people. And I think, working together, networking together, we want to, help young leaders like yourself be well positioned in your careers, particularly when you're so committed to making a difference for future foster youth. So we really appreciate your time and your experience and everything you're doing to improve access to higher education for young people. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Now I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn, who's going to get into the nuts and bolts of the Burton Book Fund process. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, Amy. So many of the campuses on here today have participated in the Burton Book Fund before. So I just want to say thank you for working with me to make sure this program is successful and improved year after year. For those new to the program, I will be your central contact for the Burton Book Fund, and you'll see my email and phone number on the side there. So if you have any issues or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So this year we have allocated $200,000 for the Burton Book Fund, and with the award level set at $200 for each eligible student, we'll be providing about 1,000 awards for participating campuses to provide to their students this year. And so to be eligible for the Burton Book Fund, the student applying has to be in foster care on or after their 13th birthday, must be enrolled in 6 or more units for the upcoming semester or quarter, is not participating or eligible to participate in Next Up, formerly known as CAFES, and has submitted their FAFSA or California Dream Act application for the 2019-20 academic year. So for that fourth requirement, like Amy said earlier, it's really to ensure students are accessing all the financial aid that they can receive. And so how might you verify that a student has completed that? You can do so by checking web grants, asking students for verification, or working with your financial aid office. They typically will have that information for you. And so one of the eligibility requirements is that they cannot be participating in Next Up or CAFES. This is because, Next Up is a wonderful resource for many foster youth students. They offer various support services, including funding for books. So that's why students who are participating or eligible to participate on their campus Next Up program are not eligible for the Burton Book Fund. It's not to say that Next Up campuses cannot participate in the Burton Book Fund, just that their pool of eligible students will be smaller. And to be eligible to participate in the Next Up program, students have to be in foster care on or after age 15, be under age 26 before the start of the academic year, enrolled in at least 9 units and be able to meet the terms of their EOPS mutual responsibility contract. And so students who are outside that realm of these eligibility requirements, for example, if they entered care on or after age 13, but then exited it before age 16 and so forth, they can be eligible for the Burn Book Fund. So we'll run through a few eligibility examples. Meet Rebecca. She's 22, was in foster care at the age of 15, is enrolled in 3 units for the upcoming semester, is not participating in the Next Step program, and submitted her FAFSA. So is Rebecca eligible for the Burn Book Fund? No, she's not eligible because she did not enroll in the minimum of the 6 units. Next, we have Marcus, who just turned 19, was placed in legal guardianship at the age of 12, is a full-time student, so taking 12 units, is not participating in the Next Step program, and submitted his FAFSA. Is Marcus eligible for the Burn Book Fund? Fortunately, or unfortunately, Marcus would not be eligible because he was placed in legal guardianship at the age of 12, and so wasn't in foster care at age 13. And finally, we have Linda. Linda is a 27-year-old student that aged out of foster care at the age of 21. She is enrolled in 9 units for the fall semester, and although she is attending a campus that offers the Next Step program, because of her age, she is not eligible to participate in that program. She has submitted her FAFSA. So is Linda eligible for the Burn Book Fund? Yes, she is eligible because she meets all of the eligibility requirements. So now that you're aware of the eligibility requirements, let's walk through the process of the Burn Book Fund. Applying for the Burn Book Fund is a simple 4-step process, which you'll see on the top level there. For campuses to get the Burn Book Fund set up, they will need to submit electronically a campus representative agreement and a bookstore agreement by July 19th. After that date, we'll review the documents and number of requests and let campuses know the number of awards they will receive by July 31st. At that point, they will be given access to the online student application to have students meet with them in person to apply for the Burn Book Fund. Once students complete their application, we'll review those submissions and send out email notifications confirming their approval, and then students can begin purchasing the textbooks and course materials. We'll discuss the other steps in the process in detail later, but you can see we'll request a mid-year funds update to see if any awards need to be reallocated, and students will be able to set up their or use their award up until April 17th, 2020, at which point the Burn Book Fund will close, and then we'll send out a valuation survey and request all bookstores to submit any remaining invoices by May 1st. And so we'll go through the steps in detail. So first, excuse me, both campus bookstore agreement and a campus representative agreement will need to be submitted by July 19th. In the campus representative agreement is where you'll submit the number of awards you'd like to receive for your students. Many campuses have a coordinator from their foster youth program fill out the form, or other campuses may have a representative in the financial aid office. Whatever the case, whoever fills out the campus rep agreement will be the main Burn Book Fund contact for working with students to apply for the Burn Book Fund award. And then there's the bookstore agreement, which is to be filled out by the campus bookstore representative. It outlines the agreement that JBA will pay up to $200 for each eligible student, what the funds can be used on, invoicing schedule, and rules of the program to make it all run smoothly. For the bookstore representatives, who are the reps for more than one campus, you'll need to submit an agreement for each campus that you manage. And so those forms can be found on the link posted on the slide there. I will also send them out after the webinar. I will also post up links to campuses who submit their agreements. So campus reps and others can check in real time if their bookstore administrator turned in their agreements and vice versa. So for some things to consider when requesting the number of awards for your campus: how many eligible foster youth attend your college, how many of those are ineligible for any other sources of funding, how many students on your campus used the Burton Book Fund last year, and what is your capacity to administer the book fund? It's our expectation that the number of words that you request is one that you can manage and confidently distribute. And so it does require a little bit of management from the campus rep. All right, so now both campus representatives and bookstore agreement are in by July 19th. Now what? JBA will review the number of applications and awards requests. If the number of awards is greater than the 1,000 that we have available, then we'll just adjust based on the number of foster youth enrolled by college and the distribution of these students across the campuses that are participating. And so on July 31st, each campus representative will receive an email containing the number of awards they received and the link to the student application. And so now campus reps can start vetting students based on the eligibility requirements of the program and meet with them in person to complete the student application. And like Amy said, and as seen in the case with Howard Davis on the Burton Book Fund, we want to use this program as an incentive to create relationships and engagement between students and the foster youth representatives and the foster youth support program on campus. So we ask that you don't share the link with the students and instead have them come meet with you in person. The form will also require the campus rep to provide their signature at the end as well. And so on the student application, ask basic questions like name, eligibility information, demographic, etc. It will just outline the rules of the program, which you'll see in the next slide. And by signing, the student confirms they have reviewed and agreed to follow the rules. And just so you know, by signing off, the student acknowledges that they meet the eligibility requirements, that they have until April 17th, 2020 to use their funds. They can use it to purchase required textbooks and course materials. And we will allow a small portion of their funds to be used to purchase class supplies, such as pens and notebooks, etc. Anything outside of those charges or any overages will be the responsibility of the student. And then the last step is the campus rep will sign off just to confirm that they have verified the student's eligibility and that they will be following all the program requirements as well. And then so that gets sent off to us, and we will review each application that comes in. The campus rep will allocate their awards by October 31st. By then, the court assistants are well into their quarters, and there's enough time for campus reps to connect with their students in person. Each student will receive an email response within a week notifying the student. We'll also see through the campus rep if they've been approved. And if we notice an issue, we'll reach out to resolve. And once the student receives an email approval, the campus rep can inform the bookstore to let the student begin purchasing their course materials on our account. And campus rep should keep a log of all approved students so that they can check in on their award use in December for any reallocation of funds needed. So we talked about this mid-year update, this reallocation process. In December, I'll be requesting a fund status update from campus rep via a tracking sheet that will need to be submitted to me by December 13th. This will require you to get an update from your bookstore. Reach out to each of the Burton Book Fund recipients to let them know that they have X amount remaining and confirm whether they like to use their remaining funds. This is that other built-in touch point and opportunity for engagement between foster youth, campus rep, and students. And also just kind of give a nudge and reminders to students to use their Burton Book Fund. And so those who submit the tracking sheet will be able to receive the new student application to reallocate any unused funds. And if it's available, we'll provide additional awards from these students in January. And so we'll briefly go over what that tracking sheet looks like. It's created so a lot of it will auto-populate as you fill out the form. In the gray, you'll fill out your info, campus email, your phone number, etc. You will put the number of awards you received from us at the beginning of the academic year in the top right box. And so for this example, let's say this college got 3 awards. for the fall semester. And in the space below is the opportunity to request more awards if you need it for the following semester. For this campus, let's say they have a few students that they anticipate enrolling in the spring, and so they would like additional funds, and so they put 4 here. You can also put 0 if you don't anticipate needing more, and that lets us know any funds that need to be reallocated can go to another campus. And then you will put the list of Burton Book Fund recipients from the campus here. And as you do so, it will auto-populate on the right how many awards were allocated based on how many rows you filled in with students' names. Next is to work with the bookstore to find out how much the students have used so far. And as you do so, the amount remaining will auto-populate for you, so you don't have to do a lot of math. Next, you'll check in with the student to remind them that they have X remaining amounts and say if they plan on using their remaining funds for the next semester or quarter, and you'll put that information in the next column. This will also auto-populate the remaining boxes on the right. And so we'll see Jane Doe and Tommy B don't need their funds next year or next semester because one of them is transferring, one of them is enrolled. And so it will calculate how much funds will need to be reallocated. And so just to tie it all up, the Burton Book Fund recipients will have until April 17th to use their $200 award. Just to reiterate, this award is used for the whole academic year. It's not by semester or quarter. Bookstores will invoice JBA the charges made from the Burton Book Fund recipients throughout the academic year. We require bookstores to invoice at least twice, but bookstores can invoice more frequently if needed. The last invoice needs to be submitted no later than May 1st, 2020. Something that is new for bookstores is that we are going to ask them to submit the invoices via an online portal, which can be found on the link here. This is to just ensure that no invoices get lost in the mail or get sent to the wrong person and there's no delays in processing. This way, with the online portal, we can guarantee that it is received on our end and the bookstores will get an automatic confirmation that the invoice was submitted. Once the Burton Book Fund is closed on April 17th, an evaluation survey will be sent out and responses will also be due by May 1st. And so overall, just some things to keep in mind. If you're a campus rep, the Burton Book Fund is a program with limited funding, so make sure you only request a number that you can confidently distribute to students. Overestimating will take away resources from campuses who can use those awards. The number of awards to each campus will be determined by the requests that come in through the campus rep agreements that are submitted by July 19th. So if you and your bookstore administrator miss the application deadline, the campus will not be able to participate for the 2019-2020 year. Students will be able to use their funds up until April 17th. Make sure that students with the greatest need apply, since again the awards are limited. Students can use the awards on textbooks and required course materials and a small portion for class supplies. Any charges outside that scope will be the responsibility of the student or campus. And lastly, to keep in mind the reallocation fund update request in December, and I will send out communications as it gets closer to the time frame. And for the bookstore reps, again, make sure your agreement is in by July 19th. All accounts and invoices must use their full name, John Burton Advocates for Youth. Only students approved for the Burton Book Fund can charge the account. You must invoice at least twice throughout the academic year, once by December 31st. This will align well because your campus representatives will reach out to you for a funds update during that time as well, and once by May 1st. You can obviously invoice more frequently if needed. And again, submit invoices through the online portal. That link can be found here. Please make sure you only include charges from one campus on each invoice. Please don't combine charges from multiple schools. And finally, funds are awarded in the fall and can be used throughout the academic year, or can be transferred to new students in January through that reallocation process. So you may hear from the campus rep or me about closing some accounts and setting up new ones for new students in January. And last but not least, all remaining funds after April 17th will be forfeited. And so lastly, for students, social workers, caregivers, campuses, anyone not on campus, you can contact the foster youth campus person and make sure your campuses are aware of the Burton Book Fund and plan to participate. On July 31st, I will be posting up a list of the participating campuses who submitted agreements by the deadline, and students can check back and reach out directly to that campus rep listed to inquire about receiving Burton Book Fund. And that's about it.
So, Carolyn, I have a question. This is Amy, that I'm hoping you can address. So I'm a campus representative. What is the earliest, if I go through the process, that a student can start purchasing their books?
They will, the earliest, I will send out the student application on July 31st. And so as soon as they get the link to that student application, they can meet with them in person and start purchasing.
Great, that's good to understand, because I heard the October something date, but as soon as they submit that application, then they have the green light.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, it does not look like we have any additional questions. Oh, one came in. How can a student find out if a university is currently participating in the Burton Book Fund? So just as I had noted, once the deadline passes, the July 19th deadline passes, I will be creating a list of all participating campuses and the contacts of the campus rep and the bookstore, and that will be listed on the Burton Book Fund page. And I will send out the link to that as well.
I think one question that may be partly tied to that, if you could speak to this, Carolyn, is if you're a CASA or a relative or a caregiver of some kind, and it sounds like, is there a way to know if they participated last year? Like, do they need to, do they need to advocate for their campus to participate, or is there any information we have about that?
I do have the list of campuses that participated last year. And so those can be, I can also put that list out, and if you want to, kind of nudge them as well, just to remind them that the Burton Book Fund application is out, and see if they're participating again. That would be great.
All right. Well, we'll give people just a minute or two more to submit questions. It's part of the kind of rationale for really trying to have a good process is the Burton Book Fund has actually been underutilized the last couple of years, and so we want to see all of this money used. And so kind of what has happened is kind of people request a certain amount and then don't use them. So the idea behind this design is to push every last dollar out to every young person who needs it. And so I think the approach of giving you as much as we can in the fall semester and then reallocating is our effort to make sure that, again, every last penny is utilized in support of higher ed for foster youth.
I have a couple more questions. $50 can be used for supplies. Do we need to okay that with the bookstore, or is that a blanket rule for all participants? Yep. So all participants can use a small portion of their Burton Book Fund for class supplies. This is really just because we've heard from the students that, they tend to have very little at the end, but it's not enough to purchase the full book. And so we just want to allow that fund to get used up, and so they can purchase, small items like pens and binders and things like that, just to use up the rest of their award. By when will you be sending the application to the schools? So the applications to participate are already out. It is on the Burn Book Fund webpage. I will also be sending it out after this webinar, so everyone will have the link to those agreements. Let's see. Can you please clarify if the student must have exhausted or not be eligible for maybe I'm not getting this question. Oh, okay. So can you please clarify if the student must have exhausted and not be eligible for financial aid to qualify for the Burn Book Fund? They can be eligible for financial aid and still qualify for the Burn Book Fund. How are awards per campus determined? We will review the requests that come in by the July 19th deadline, and our hope is that we'll be able to meet all the requests, but if it is over the 1,000 awards that we do have available, we will adjust based on the eligible foster youth on your campus.
Okay, here's another question, Carolyn. If they reallocate funds, do they get reallocated to the same college?
Yes.
So the idea is to, if you have a different student who needs the assistance, they get to keep that funding.
Correct.
Great. Here's another one. Previously, we had to approve expenses individually outside of books. Do you know what that person may be thinking of?
I'm not sure, but as long as it's, a required course material listed under their course syllabi, they are able to purchase, and they're able to purchase it through the Burn Book or through the bookstore, then they'll be able to use the book fund for it.
Great, thank you. Someone noted that one of our dates says 2019, not 20. Thank you for letting us know that. We'll make that correction. That's very helpful. And let's see. Is there any consequence if a student starts at 6 units, uses the book fund, and then drops below 6 units?
No, there's not. As long as when they first apply, they have the 6-unit minimum, then they can be eligible for the Burn Book Fund.
Great. These are all really good questions. A lot of questions about the presentation. Is it being recorded? Will it be available? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. There are a number of people, though, Carolyn, are hoping that you could quickly go back to that eligibility page, and I can get us there. And if you could just step through those really quick.
Sure.
A once over. Let me get to that on the presentation here.
Okay. So the eligibility requirements are they have to be in foster care on or after their 13th birthday. Oh, all right, I will wait until we get to the slide. Okay. So number one, they have to be in foster care on or after their 13th birthday. They have to be enrolled in 6 or more units for the semester or quarter. They are not participating or eligible to participate in Next Step, and that they have submitted a FAFSA or California Mainstream Act application for the 1920 academic school year.
And these are the same eligibility criteria we've had for a couple of years. I would say, Carolyn did a great job of highlighting the differences. One is the submission of the invoices through the portal, the kind of expansion of the eligible uses in order to use that last bit of the book fund. I mean, I think I'm really glad she hit on the point behind that, which is you get your big expensive books and then you've got a little dribble left over, and the idea is let's use it all and give them the flexibility to do that. And that may be some kind of guidance that you offer to the students, like don't go in buying the pencil. Start with your more expensive, larger purchases, and then we'll make sure that you use up the rest of it. Are those kind of the main two differences, Carolina, as last year?
Yep, you hit it all on the dot. All
right. Well, I think that we've hit all the main questions, and I really want to take the time again to thank everyone. I guess one last eligibility question that I just saw at the top is, are they okay, no, actually we did cover that. To thank everyone for being on today's web seminar, really appreciate it. All the materials that Carolyn mentioned are posted on the website, and we'll get this recording downloaded and sent out to everyone as soon as possible, so we can start getting those forms filled in and completed, and reaching out to young people about the Burton Book Fund. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Take care. Bye.